This is TWiT.
The web officially turned 35. And its dad, Tim Berners-Lee, has renewed his expression of his disappointment over how things have been going recently.
Oh, so this is one of those I'm not angry, I'm disappointed situations. I was hoping he was happy with his child.
Yes, my son, it is. I'm disappointed in the way you have turned out.
Oh.
So 1 week ago on March 12th, Tim wrote, he said, 3.5 decades ago, when I invented the web, which, few people can say, he said, its trajectory was impossible to imagine. There was no roadmap to predict the course of its evolution. It was a captivating odyssey filled with unforeseen opportunities and challenges. Underlying its whole infrastructure was the intention to allow for collaboration, foster compassion, and generate creativity. Okay, I would argue that we got 2 of those 3 at least. He says, what I term the 3 C's. Now, of course, a lot of this is retrospective, right? It's like it's easy to rewrite history 35 years later, but we'll see. Anyway, he says it was to be a tool to empower humanity. The first decade of the web fulfilled that promise. The web was decentralized with a long tail of content and options. It created small, more localized communities, provided individual empowerment, and fostered huge value. Yet, in the past decade, instead of embodying these values, the web has instead played a part in eroding them. The consequences are increasingly far-reaching, from the centralization of platforms to the AI revolution. The web serves as the foundational layer of our online ecosystem, an ecosystem that is now reshaping the geopolitical landscape, driving economic shifts, and influencing the lives of people around the world. 5 years ago, when the web turned 30, I called out some of the dysfunction caused by the web being dominated by the self-interest of several corporations that have eroded the web's values and led to breakdown and harm. Now, 5 years on, as we arrive at the web's 35th birthday, the rapid advancement of AI has exacerbated these concerns, proving that issues on the web are not isolated, but rather deeply intertwined with emerging technologies. There are 2 clear connected issues to address. The first is the extent of power concentration, which contradicts the decentralized spirit I originally envisioned, if indeed he originally did. He says, this has segmented the web with a fight to keep users hooked on one platform. Gee, wonder what that could be. To optimize profit through the passive observation of content, like while they drool. This exploitive business model is particularly grave in this year of elections that could unravel political turmoil. Compounding this issue is the second, the personal data market. That has exploited people's time and data with the creation of deep profiles that allow for targeted advertising and ultimately control over the information people are fed. How has this happened? Leadership, hindered by a lack of diversity, has steered away from a tool for public good, and one that is instead subject to capitalist forces, resulting in monopolization. Governance, which should correct for this, has failed to do so, with regulatory measures being outstripped by the rapid development of innovation, leading to a widening gap between technological advancements and effective oversight. The future, he writes, hinges on our ability to both reform the current system and create a new one that genuinely serves the best interests of humanity. To which I'm just going to insert here, good luck with that. Anyway, To achieve this, he writes, we must break down data silos to encourage collaboration, create market conditions in which a diversity of options thrive to fuel creativity, and shift away from polarizing content to an environment shaped by a diversity of voices and perspectives that nurture empathy and understanding. Or we could just all watch cat videos because, those are cute. Anyway, he says, to truly transform the current system, we must simultaneously tackle its existing problems and champion the efforts of those visionary individuals who are actively working to build a new, improved system. A new paradigm is emerging, one that places individuals' intention rather than attention at the heart of business models, freeing us from the constraints of the established order and returning control over our data. Driven by a new generation of pioneers, this movement seeks to create a more human-centered web, aligned with my original vision. These innovators hail from diverse disciplines, research, policy, and product design, united in their pursuit of a web and related technologies that serve and empower us all. Blue Sky and Mastodon don't feed off of our engagement, but still create group formation. GitHub provides online collaboration tools, and podcasts contribute to community knowledge. As this emergent paradigm gains momentum, I should mention podcasts that are disappearing rapidly, unfortunately. As this emergent paradigm gains momentum, we have the opportunity to reshape a digital future that prioritizes human well-being, equity, and autonomy. The time to act and embrace this transformative potential is, guess what? Now. As outlined in the Contract for the Web, a multitude of stakeholders must collaborate to reform the web and guide the development of emerging technologies. Innovative market solutions like those I've highlighted are essential to this process. Forward-thinking legislation, okay, now there's an oxymoron for you, from governments worldwide can facilitate these solutions and help manage the current system more effectively. Finally, we, as citizens all over the world, need to be engaged and demand higher standards and greater accountability for our online experiences. The time is now to confront the dominant system's shortcomings while catalyzing transformative solutions that empower individuals. This emergent system, ripe with potential, is rising, and the tools for control are within reach.
It's starting to sound like a manifesto a little bit.
It really is. And I only have a little bit more, and then we'll discuss this. Part of the solution is the so-called solid protocol, capital S, capital P, a specification and a movement to provide each person with their own personal online data store, known as a pod, P-O-D, right? Personal online data. We can return the value that has been lost and restore control over personal data by putting it in a pod. With Solid, individuals decide how their data is managed, used, and shared. This approach has already begun to take root, as seen in Flanders, where every citizen now has their own pod, after Jan Jambon announced 4 years ago that all Flanders citizens should have a pod. This is the result of data ownership and control, and it's an example of the emergent movement that is poised to replace the outdated incumbent system. And finally, realizing this emergent movement won't just happen. Boy, is he right about that. He says it requires support for the people leading the reform. From researchers to inventors to advocates, we must amplify and promote these positive use cases and work to shift the collective mindset of global citizens. The Web Foundation that I co-founded with Rosemary Lay has and will continue to support and accelerate this emergent system and the people behind it. However, there is a need, an urgent need, for others to do the same, to back the morally courageous leadership that is rising, collectivize their solutions, and overturn the online world being dictated by profit to one that is dictated by the needs of humanity. It is only then that the online ecosystem we all live in will reach its full potential and provide the foundations for creativity, collaboration, and compassion. Tim Berners-Lee, 12th of March, 2024.
Well, you've got your pod, right?
Call me jaded, call me old, but I do not see any way for us to get from where we are today to anything like what Tim envisions. The web has been captured, hook, line, and sinker, by commercial interests, and they are never going to let go. Diversity? Well, one browser most of the world uses is maintained by the world's largest advertiser, and no one forced that to happen. For some reason, most people apparently just like that colorful round Chrome browser icon. And Chrome is cleaner looking. Its visual design is appealing. Somehow the word spread that it was a better browser, and nothing convinced people otherwise. And what Microsoft has done to their Edge browser would drive anyone anywhere else. But I've wandered away from my point. People do not truly care about things that they neither see nor understand. How do you care about something that you don't really understand?
Yep.
The technologies that are being used to track us around the internet and to collect data on our actions are both unseen and poorly understood. People have some dull sense that they're being tracked, but only because they've heard it said so many times. Oh, I'm being tracked, but they don't know. They don't see it. They just kind of think, okay, it makes them feel uncomfortable, but they still do what they were doing. They don't have any idea what that really means. They certainly have no idea about any of the details, and they have better things to worry about.
Yes, most importantly, they have better things to worry about. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Tim writes, part of the solution is the solid protocol, a specification and a movement to provide each person with their own personal online data store known as a pod. We can return the value that has been lost and restore control over personal data. Now, okay, while I honor Tim's spirit and intent, I really do, I seriously doubt that almost anyone could be bothered to exercise control over their online personal data repository. I don't even know what that looks like. The listeners of this podcast would likely be curious to learn more. But as one of my ex-girlfriends used to say, we're not normal. My feeling is that the web is going to do what the web is going to do. Yes, there are things wrong with it. And yes, it can be deeply invasive of our privacy. But it also appears to be largely self-financing. Apparently, at least in part, thanks to those same privacy invasions. We pay for bandwidth access to the internet, and the rest is free. Once we're connected, we have virtually instantaneous and unfettered access to a truly astonishing breadth of information. And it's mostly free. There are some annoying sites that won't let you in without paying, so most people simply go elsewhere. The reason most of the web is free is that, with a few exceptions, such as Wikipedia, for-profit commercial interests see an advantage to them for providing it. Are we being tracked in return? Apparently. But if that means we get everything for free, do we really care? If having the internet know whether I wear boxers or briefs means that all of this is opened up to me without needing to pay individually for every site I visit, then okay. Briefs have always been my thing. Tim may have invented the World Wide Web 35 years ago, but he certainly did not invent what the web has become. That, of course, is why he's so upset. The web has utterly outgrown its parent, and it's finding its own way in the world. It is far beyond discipline and far beyond control. And most importantly of all today, it is already giving most people exactly what they want. Good luck changing that.
Well put, Steve. Honestly, when I think about this, and here you go, you said maybe you're jaded and old and this and that and the other. I may be jaded, but I'm not exactly aged. And so even as a relative youth, hearing that, I want to, put on a French beret and chant and say hurrah and feel it. And I do feel it. But I think realistically, it's not realistic if we're being honest. And so as cool as that would be and as amazing as that would be, yeah, ultimately what you're saying about the stuff that Tim is talking about here, should I guess say Tim Berners-Lee is talking about here, is so abstracted from how people use these devices to connect to the internet and to, communicate with one another, that, yeah, it would require some level of sitting everyone down across the entire world and explaining to them how all of this works, for there to be even the beginning of a concern about what would be necessary to convince everybody that they should care about this. And as I'm saying just then, you heard all the hedging that kind of took place there. It wouldn't even necessarily make a difference, even if you did explain it, because they still have to care about it. And most importantly, most people don't need to care about it. And so they have bigger, better things in their world that they have to care about. And that is, I think, always going to be the case. And that's, the people who do care about this stuff, we do our best to communicate and educate. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, as much as you might, I don't know. To take the time to write all of this out and to, put forth this idea, I think is a very noble thing. But I do wonder, I wish I could talk to Tim Berners-Lee sort of just, face to face and say,
what are you thinking?
Yeah, what do you think? Do you really think that anyone's going to do this? Or are you this is just a hopeful sort of, I'm putting it out into the world. Like,
how high is that ivory tower?
Exactly. We're down here. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. And again, I really do believe that most users' wishes are now being fulfilled.
Right.
My wife asks me a few questions every evening, and I say, well, did you Google it? It's like, that's what I do. I ask the internet, and it tells me the answer, because there's so much going on. It's so complicated now that the right model is no longer to try to know everything. It's simply to know how to find out. That's the future with the knowledge explosion that we're now in, and the content explosion. So there was an anecdote for a while. I don't remember now exactly what it was, but it was something like, would you, back when people were typically using a single password, like universally for all their stuff, someone did an experiment where they went up to people and said, here's a lollipop. I'll trade you for your password. And most people said, okay. They just didn't give a rat's ass, about security.
Right.
And most people just aren't as focused. I mean, this podcast is all about this kind of focus. And as I said, an ex-girlfriend used to say to me, "You're not normal." So yeah, we're not. But most of the world, they just, the internet does what they want, and start asking them to pay in some significant way. I mean, look at the club. Look at Club TWiT.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a very small percentage of the overall listener base. Yes. And and you say pay in some significant way. Anecdotally, it doesn't have to be a significant amount of payment for somebody to go, well, suddenly I don't care about that anymore. There have been a number, like an app. I saw that everybody's posting these photos of themselves. They've been AI generated. How do they do that? I say, it's this app and you pay like 50 cents to get a photo generation. Oh, never mind. I don't care about that anymore. Yeah, it's 50 cents. But yeah, it doesn't take that much for them to be like, no. That's not something I'm into.
No, and as we know, there are some sites which have survived in the in the pay to enter model, but many of the early attempts fell flat because the moment the sites put up a paywall, most people said, I clicked the first link in Google and it took me to the paywall. What's the second link take me to? Oh, look, that's free.
Hey, it's Leo Laporte. I hope you've enjoyed this little snippet from Security Now. If you want the whole show, you can get it at our website, twit.tv/SN. Of course, you can subscribe to Security Now on your favorite podcast, or just click one of the links below.